Smart homes, what do we look at? What don't we look at? And what is, more importantly, what is a smart home? So just because you have smart devices doesn't make it a smart home, okay? We have all these devices through our home. They're all called smart devices, or are they connected devices? But without automation, you can't really make a smart home. So if you think back to the Jetsons in 1962, okay, and all the smart devices that they had, all of that is reality today and much more. So we're going to skip through a few slides because of time, but basically, we'll talk about the penetration into the market, what the standard of practice is, and it's going to be different. So if you're in a licensed state, you have to go by your SOP. Whatever inspection SOP you're inspecting to is going to govern that. But I'll tell you right now, very few, if any, truly address smart home tech. Talk about a little bit about what makes up the smart home. I want to spend a lot of time on the devices you have in the home, security risks, and the good stuff, writing reports. So a smart house, it takes automation to truly make it a smart home. So basically, you're creating routines or recipes to make a home do what you want it to do, and capitalizing upon all of the connected devices that we have. But you need something to do that. So, it's mainstream, but what you need, and we'll back up a little bit. Let me talk about the penetration numbers first. So in 2025, the penetration is about $134 billion in the U.S. And you can see where we're going to 2030, $78.9 billion of additional, if not more. It's growing at exponential rates, especially with the advent of AI. It's now even more important. It's growing so much faster. When we talk about AI, it's just moving so much faster. But you can see right here on this chart right here, the bottom block is security and access systems. That's the percentage there. The next block is lighting. So you can see those two make up the biggest portion of the smart home penetration is lighting controls. Entertainment devices, HVAC, smart kitchen appliances, home appliances, smart furniture, home health care, and other devices. All of those make up the smart home. Okay, 27.6% of smart home tech in homes is video related. 21% is home security, and that's the fastest growing segment. And then smart speakers is 14%. They say their smart speakers are in 50% of the homes across the country. And then the other is 36%. So any home can be a smart home with today's technology, whether you're talking about a turn-of-the-century row house, whether you're talking about a mid-century bungalow, modern contemporary homes, or garden paradise. It's not what it used to be. It used to be very techy, very nerdy. Everything had to be hardwired, very expensive. It's so mainstream. Any home can be a smart home. And you can fix things. So when you're doing an inspection, and there's a light switch at the bottom of the steps, and there isn't a light switch at the top of the steps, for less than $100, I can fix that problem with smart switches, as opposed to having to hire an electrician and run wires and install three-way light switches. So It's made things that we can do very cost effective. So are we required to inspect smart home devices? Okay? No? Anybody else? Nope. No other takers? Okay. The answer is not quite so simple, but you're right, okay? In an aspect is you can never truly inspect all of the features of smart home devices. You're not going to have a password. You're not going to have their tablet or their app on their phone. There's so many aspects of it you can't inspect, and you can't inspect the automation. Very true, and that I kind of get to that a little bit later on, but I've done inspections where you turn the thermostat up or down, okay? You go down to the basement, because we have basements in Missouri where I'm from, and nothing happens. And you think, okay, well, I'll wait a few more minutes. Maybe it's one that takes a little while to cycle. You go back upstairs, the thermostat's back where it was. You change it again, it happens again. Then you have to pick up the phone and call the listing agent to call the buyer and tell them to keep their dirty mitts off of the app and stop changing the temperature. Or that smart thermostat may be locked. You know, so then you have to call, make a phone call, and get them to unlock it so that you can test something that we're supposed to inspect. Mm-hmm. So the answer is yes and no, okay, are on what we need to inspect. So if we look at the ASHI standard of practice, it says in the electrical section that we're supposed to inspect overcurrent protection devices, a representative number of installed light fixtures, switches, and receptacles.
What's your definition of representative number? There's 100 light switches in the house. Give me your representation.
Well, you know, one per room is technically what some people say, but it's everybody's definition is different. Personally, I go way past that, okay? But the point is here, we're supposed to look at overcurrent protection, installed light fixtures, switches, and receptacles. Well, you have smart switches, and it has a mechanical function, and it has a smart function, okay? You have outlets, again, mechanical and potentially smart. It's not just the light bulb anymore. It's the light fixture. It's the ceiling fan. It's built into it, okay? Overcurrent protection. Circuit breakers, smart circuit breakers. So essentially, we still need to inspect those devices, but we're very limited in what we can inspect. So continuing on, we're not required to do remote control access to test smoke, carbon monoxide detectors, security system, signaling systems, okay? So it says we don't have to do the remote control access, which is controlled by an app, a tablet, or some type of automation. On plumbing, interior water supply distribution systems, including fixtures and faucets. There's smart valves, there's smart fixtures, there's smart faucets, and so much more. Same thing on installed heating and air conditioning. We have to inspect it, but we may be limited by aspects of what we can actually inspect. Back to your thermostat situation.
Your Ring doorbell, too.
Your Ring doorbell, that's right. You know, all of this. Everything that's inspected, that's a smart or connected device, you may not be required to inspect because you can't put your hands on it, but you may be required to inspect the mechanical operation side of it. You go into kitchens, bathrooms, laundries, exhaust systems, it's the same thing. So yes, we do have to inspect aspects of smart homes, okay, but there are a lot of aspects that we don't have to address. And of all the SOPs that I've looked at, nobody specifically currently addresses smart home tech. But it's in every house, and builders say that it's going to be built into all new construction in the next 5 years. Every switch, every outlet, every device in a house will have some type of smart or connected technology tied to it. So automation, what makes it smart? Okay, in bathrooms, you could literally have a sensor, so you walk into a bathroom, it knows you're there, it turns the lights on, okay? You turn the shower on, it automatically turns the exhaust fan on, or maybe based upon the time of day that you walk in, the shower turns on for you at your temperature preference. All automation, all very possible with a couple $100 worth of stuff that you could do in any house. Really, the sky's the limit in what you can do. In bedrooms, it's the kids' bedtime. It's the kids' bedtime. The shades come down, the bedroom lights go off, the sound machine comes on, the hall light dims to 10%. Your kid gets out of bed, and the smart speaker says, "Get back in bed, Johnny." The kid opens the bedroom window late at night, and you get a notification. No more sneaking out at night, okay? All this is very possible. Are you not wanting to support them anymore? Garage automation. You open the garage, you pull into the garage, the alarm's turned off, the kitchen lights turns on, your favorite music station starts to play, all because you pulled into the driveway. You don't even have to hit the garage door opener button because of geofencing. We could go on and on, but these are just 4 example home theater examples. You know, the sky's the limit. What would you like to do for an automation in your home?
Not a damn thing. I already got everything I want, so.
You've got everything. Anybody? Everything. What would Mike Crow want done in his house in automation?
Well, I already set up, so lights on, lights off, but I don't have it set on timers or motion activated yet. That might be a good next step up. Still got the clapper?
There are smart.
I took medicine for that. We're all good.
So there are smart switches that not only have motion detectors, okay, but now they're building present detection, so like sonar into it. So when you walk into a room, it's all done upon that. You're sitting in the room, it knows that you're still in the room. No more lights turn off because you have to get up and wave your arm. The tech is really getting pretty amazing. But the sky's the limit. The sky's the limit in what you can do in automation. So really, you may not be able to inspect a lot of aspects of a smart home, but you need to understand how it works, okay? You also need to understand that try to be able to identify if you can. A lot of times you can't, okay? But so that you know what to put in your report.
Seriously, there's a few items there, I had no idea what they were. And I got on Google, camera, tell me exactly what it is, I'm able to say, oh, you have this in your house.
Google Lens.
Google Lens, correct.
That's right. That's right. But you have to be really careful with AI, okay? You have to give it very specific instructions, and you want it to reference its sources, and you want to tell it not to fill in the blanks or make up crap, because it will. And if you're depending upon AI and it makes something up, that's not factual and you put it in your report, or it's referencing something that doesn't apply, you're increasing your liability. AI, we could spend hours talking about it. But to make up a smart home, you need some type of a digital interface, okay? It could be a voice assistant, it could be a tablet, it could be an app on your phone. You need some type of digital interface. The communication protocol, and there's a bunch of different ones, they're trying to standardize it, but if you're using Wi-Fi, that's the language that the devices use to talk. So it's basically, if you go to Spain, you're speaking Spanish. Here you're speaking English. It's the language the devices are using to talk to each other. Okay, and then you need smart home devices, a myriad of the devices. Yes.
What about inspecting point of demarcation in a box, like they have the new boxes by Leviton that are for audiovisual and smart.
Okay,
stuff?
so you're talking about structured media
Cat
boxes.
5, Cat 6
Right.
coming in, and fiber, all coming into one point of demarcation. Would this inspection include looking at those boxes? Because
No, not really.
that's outside the standards of practice as I know it.
It isn't really, and there may not be a specific a point of demarcation that you can even locate. So you need the internet if it's connected, which means you need a modem. You need probably a smart hub so that you don't have 20 apps controlling every device, okay? That modem and hub may be in that structured media box. It could be sitting on a shelf someplace. And looking at the box, you may not even know what you're looking at. They could put it on top of a cabinet. You might never see it.
Well, they have those boxes, but they have a new generation of electric service panels too.
Right, and we'll talk about that in a little while, okay? But there's no specific point of demarcation that you can look for that you probably will be able to identify it. You could,
They make these boxes now.
but we're talking about, they do, but we're talking about smart homes, okay? And
That's what they're for though.
it's the wiring part of it, okay? And your internet, your connections, but most smart home devices are all wireless. Okay, so the brains that's running your smart home, it could be in a office, it could be in the kitchen, it could be in a bedroom. Okay, it may not be in one of those boxes. It all depends upon how you set it up, and since it's all wireless, in most cases, there are still some wired systems, especially in the super high-end homes, smart homes. But since most of it's wireless, really, wherever the modem is hooked up, that's where it ends, unless they have a hub plugged directly into a modem. And the brains of the smart home is that, hub, that smart home hub. And the reason why you have a smart home hub is there's a lot of different communication protocols. So the communication protocols, the language that they're using for, if you've got some switches and outlets that are Wi-Fi and a smart speaker that's Wi-Fi, but then you have some Zigbee devices, and then you have some Z-Wave devices, and you have some Thread and Matter devices. They all can't talk to each other. If you're using Leviton, it's got a proprietary communication protocol that you have to use their hub. Okay, so you could have several hubs, okay, if you're using several different brands, but if you get one hub that talks in all these different languages, now you can control everything from one app, one tablet, on your cell phone without having to have 20 apps. So that's really the reason for the brains, unless you've got everything built on the same protocol, the same brand. Every manufacturer has their own app. If you buy Leviton switches, they have their own app. If you buy Casa switches, They have their own app. Every manufacturer has their own app. And do you really want 20 different apps on your phone?
Is there any checklist for an inspector to go, all right, this is a smart home, I need to do this, or maybe I can check this, or a checklist of things to check, and maybe even more importantly, is there a don't do this if it's a smart home?
I don't think there's anything currently published. That's something that I could probably put together pretty easily and make available for download as a guide, but it's changing so rapidly that it would have to be updated on a regular basis.
I didn't figure, I've been looking at smart homes for 20-plus years.
Exactly.
But I never figured there was anything I could teach my inspectors, hey, do this. But I am concerned that I should teach my inspectors, hey, if it's a smart home and you see this, whatever you do, don't do this, And that one actually concerns me probably a little more than the first one.
Right.
Yeah, well, or be careful when you take the cover off the main electrical panel, right? You trim it, right, or
Exactly. And there's some things that,
it's a really smart house, it should reset itself,
right, there's some smart things that you could kind of mess up, especially when you get in with the really high-end homes. But there's a lot of it that it would be difficult. So I walked into a house about a year ago, and I was told, don't touch any switches, all the lights are on. If you turn a switch off, you're going to mess up my smart home. Well, I know enough about smart homes to know that's not the case.
That's not true, right?
Okay? And we're required to test the manual function of switches. So I'm like, I don't care. But if I didn't know, the seller said not to do this, so I would probably put something in my report. The seller stated we could not test, the light switches.
Because if I turn the switch off and leave it off,
Right,
I've screwed their system up. Right. Okay?
possibly, depending
in
upon
my
the system.
house,
Right.
We have this cleaner, she's a wonderful lady, but she loves to turn switches off as she leaves, and I have to come back in the house and turn, switches back on.
Right, and it all depends upon the type of system. So if it's dependent upon you leaving it in the on position, if we talk about faucets, we've all walked up to the kitchen faucet that has the touchless. If you turn the valve off, the faucet doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yes.
write that up as a broken faucet then.
Or the batteries were dead, so, Mike's got a very good point. So make sure you leave everything the way you found it. Which we should be doing anyway. It's like if you, it's like if you turn the temperature down for air conditioning and you leave it where you set it, you're gonna get a nasty phone call and they're gonna want you to pay their electric bill. Leave everything just like you found it. So, we've kind of talked about this, but like a lot of the smart speakers, they all work on Wi-Fi. There's a few devices that work on Bluetooth also, okay? Pretty mainstream stuff, is Wi-Fi, smart speakers, some of that stuff. Some of the switches are. The more techy, more advanced stuff is generally going to be a Zigbee protocol. It's going to be a Z-Wave, it's going to be a Thread, it's going to be a Matter, it's going to be some other protocol. But the Wi-Fi stuff, I can connect a Zigbee switch and make it work on my Amazon Alexa. So they have tools so that you can make it all work. So, like I said, the hub, your smart speakers, and a lot of the smart speakers act as a hub. They're really the brains of the house. But there's a few brands set apart when it comes to smart home systems. It's predominantly in the very high-end homes. Things like Control4, Savant, Crestion, they're high-end solutions. And when you walk into a house that has that, you're normally going to know it because you're going to see a room or a rack full of equipment. It's got lighting controls, it's got environmental controls, it's got audio, video, but you're generally going to know because you see a lot of high-tech equipment concentrated in one spot, and you're probably going to see the structured media boxes that you're talking about, and you're going to see a lot of Ethernet cables, a lot of coax cables, all coming into this one room. Those are the really high-end systems, and those are the systems that you want to make sure you know what you're doing, you don't mess with, because otherwise, if they have to bring a tech out to mess with a system, it could cost them $1,000 or more to reprogram it. And those types of systems, people are spending tens of thousands of dollars or more to put in a house, $100,000, really easy. But those high-end systems, you definitely really don't want to mess with.
Even 20 years ago, I found that they have a lot of these on, like the swimming pools.
Mm-hmm.
Those ones are what started scaring me back then.
That's right. You know,
Hey, those are, I like this one.
Well, maybe, you're probably used to them.
Yeah, that's what it is.
yeah, so, but it's like you have a summer home someplace or a winter home someplace.
Oh, Florida.
Florida, okay? We'll use Florida.
It covers both.
Okay. You have a swimming pool there. You have smart systems there. You can monitor the pool.
Yeah.
Somebody's coming to use the house, you can tell them not to touch anything, I'll turn it on. I'll change the temperature. Okay? You can program while you're out of town the lights, literally to randomly come on in a different pattern at different times every day so the house looks lived in. You can have a water sensor that tells you if you have a leak and shuts the water off. You know, put a sensor in your refrigerator if the temperature gets above a certain point so you know you have a problem, okay? So getting into devices, you have wired systems. The high-end systems are still wired, but you know, what Mike's talking about, you know, like we had X1, X4, a bunch of systems like that that were all hardwired. It took a lot of wiring. It was very techy, you know, very expensive because of all the miles of wiring you would have to run. Most of the stuff today, other than a switch that you're hooking up in a hot, a neutral, and a ground, okay? So some switches and devices, as we'll talk about in a few minutes, require a neutral wire even though it's just breaking the hot leg. So that gets those tend to get very expensive, but the wireless, it communicates via RF signal, protocol, Wi-Fi, or Bluetooth. So a lot of it's just radio frequency signals, so you don't need any extra special wiring. In a lot of systems, if you have a problem with it, you may have to register a device and deregister a device. So when you put in a new switch, you have to scan the QR code on it and to register the device to the hub so that it knows what it's there. But then if it stops working, you may have to do a repair to the network just by tapping on a button and having it self-repair itself, okay? Or you may have to deregister something and re-register it. So if you're messing with something and it stops working and they have to deregister it and re-register, they're not going to be happy. Some of those Wi-Fi systems and RF systems are slower, so you flip on the switch and the light doesn't come on instantly. There's a little bit of delay. So the smart speaker, we've talked about that. It uses voice recognition. You know, it's pretty much every place now. But it basically is a language processing thing, so device, so that you say, "Hey Alexa, turn on lights," and it executes a routine and turns on the device you want. You have a routine that, you know, says, "Hey, did you hear that? Hey, Alexa, did you hear that?" In the middle of the night, you hear a noise, you say that, and it turns on every light in the house. You can do just about anything you want with these. You can stream audio, you can relay information, you can drop in another room and listen to something. If your Alexa account is connected to your kid's account that's in a different state, you can literally drop into their house and listen. You know, you can communicate with other devices, and now with AI, you can have conversations with them. So here's an example of things gone wrong with AI, with smart homes.
Play jazz.
Playing jazz.
Smoothie.
Making smoothie.
Calendar.
No meetings today. Remember, tandläkare at 9:30.
Fire off.
Fire off.
Open door.
Door open.
Sånn, så skal vi sette en til.
Ja. Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open door.
Wrong voice command.
Open. Open door.
Repeat that.
Open door.
I didn't understand that.
Hey, open door.
Play on the floor.
Get over the door. Open the door.
Wrong
Open the
voice
door.
command. Error.
Hey there, with a rock. Open door. Open door. Open door. Fire.
So, just because you have smart technology and a voice assistant, things don't always go right. I added this because when I was doing talks, I found that some people didn't understand certain aspects of just basic wiring. So a normal light switch, all you're doing is you're breaking the hot wire. It doesn't require a neutral for a single switch. It only requires you break the hot leg, okay? But if you have a three-way switch, you use a black, a red, and a white, okay? And it's because you have to have power at both switches all the time. So one of those wires is called a traveler wire. So how many times have you walked into a house and you flip a switch at the bottom of the steps and you go upstairs, and do you try the switches at both ends? Do you turn the switch off upstairs and leave it off and then come back downstairs and try it again? If you don't, and one switch is in a certain position and it doesn't work, they have the traveler wire hooked up wrong. Okay? So, but then we talk about smart switches. It requires a hot and a neutral. Okay? And there's typically going to be there's going to be four wires hooked up to it now. Okay? It's going to require a hot. It's going to require your line, have your line in, the line going out. It may have another wire if it's a three-way, or it may be, you may not require a fourth wire for the three-way, and then it has the ground hooked up to it. It requires the neutral because it requires 120 volts for the smart feature to work. You're no longer just breaking the leg, the hot leg, okay? Without the neutral, it won't work. Now, there are a few switches that will work without a neutral. There are a few switches you can add on a module so you can do it without the neutral, okay? But I've walked in we all know what a bootleg ground is. I've walked into houses before and found bootleg grounds to make that neutral. But typically we're not pulling switches and outlet covers, okay? So unless you go into a house with aluminum wiring and you're checking for that, you might not see it. But there's a lot of different devices, smart switch devices and dimmers. They all look across the board. Most of them are not going to say smart on them. Lutron did have one that said smart on it. It said smart Decora. Customers complained, so they took the words off the switch. Now it just looks like a standard Decora switch. If you're looking at a switch and you see an LED and it's not a dimmer, you see a blue or a green LED, it's probably a smart switch. Okay? If you see something that looks like this one on your far right, that's got a voice assistant built into it. So I can make that switch work with Amazon, Google, Siri, practically any voice assistant. There's some really high-end voice assistants that are specific to brands of systems like Josh, but you can make that switch work as a smart switch, as a mechanical switch, and as a voice assistant. There's some that have sensors in them. But when you start to see switches that just look unusual, like the smart dimmer, you just slide your finger on it, and it comes on and it changes. Whereas if you look at the old Maestro dimmers with the little bitty dots on the right-hand side, those weren't smart switches, and they still sell them, but it's not a smart switch. So it may be very difficult to recognize a smart switch, but if it looks unusual, if it's got a glass front, if it's got a touch switch, if you see the little perforations for a voice assistant in it, it's probably a smart switch. If you see one like the Decora one, second one from your right, that smart switch in a belly, you can program it to do 27 different things. So that indicator light on the right-hand side, I could program it so it's red when the alarm's set, orange when the front door's left open. You know, so you can program these things to do a lot of different things. The Lutron Cassetta, okay, those switches on your far left side, they look a little bit different. They come in a bunch of different varieties. Some of those switches are merely a remote. They call it a Pico remote. But it's literally a little flat panel, less than 1/4 of an inch thick, and you can, if you have a stairwell where you only have one switch, you can Velcro that to the wall, put a plate around it. It looks like a switch, but it's not. It's a remote. Now, if you run across something like that, it may be that the batteries are dead in it. But those are all smart switches. There's wired and wireless ones, but they all have to be wired in some way if it's a smart switch, okay? You've got dimmers, you've got little RF transceivers, so you can put a little bitty, what looks like a little bitty relay, and wire it into a box behind a switch or an outlet or above a light fixture, not even know it's there. The switch is still mechanical, but the little relay device that fits in the box is actually your smart switch. There's just a ton of different varieties, but you're never going to be able to determine them all. If you think it's a smart switch, or you think you see something that's a smart switch, I would say there may be smart switches in the house. Unless you clearly know that it is, I wouldn't say definitively that there are. But if you think there are, I would, 5 minutes, okay. I would definitely talk about it. You have smart outlets. Generally, you're going to be able to tell it's a smart outlet because there's going to be a little button on it so that you can turn half of it on or off on site, or it can be remotely controlled. You have smart thermostats. Be careful if you sign up for those eco-saving programs where your utility company pays you $100 to sign up for it and gives you a $25 credit a year. There was a few years ago,
Thousands of
going back, a few years ago, Xcel Energy had a program just like what I described. People came home on a hot summer day to find their thermostats were locked and set at 78 degrees because they had signed up for this energy saving program. The utility company declared a high use peak or an energy emergency, and they couldn't touch their thermostats. And a lot of these smart thermostats now have features like that you can sign up. So if you sign up for that, just be aware that could happen to you. You have smart plumbing products, everything from leak and flow centers, shower systems, sump pumps, sprinkler control systems, toilets, faucets. The smart shower systems, it still does require a power supply. It's got to be plugged into a GFI protected device, but normally there's a box in the wall or they've got it tucked in, the brains of it. The smart water switch, the smart water valves. So Moen has a Moen Flow. It literally will send you a notification every time it thinks you have a leak. So if you have a humidifier, okay, I have an uncle that has a house in Florida, and he calls me every winter when he goes to Florida. I got a leak in my house. You got to run over and check it. Okay, so I go over, I find a leaking flapper, I turn the toilet off. He calls me the next day, I still have a leak. You didn't find it. His humidifier is using so much water, the smart valve thinks it's a leak because it doesn't know it has a humidifier. Okay, if it thinks it's leaking enough, it'll turn the water off automatically. You can connect sensors to these things and put it under every faucet, every plumbing fixture, in the vanity, behind the toilet, and your insurance company will give you a discount because the two biggest claims are roofs and water damage. You've got add-on devices that you literally can just clamp to a pipe and it will work with a ball valve, or you have self-contained devices. You have access control systems. Some are smart, some are not. You can do e-keys. With these devices, make sure that you advise your clients to get the master password or they can't reprogram them. Smart electrical panels. There's a bunch of different companies making them. You can get smart GFCIs, AFCIs, combination of the two, just a smart circuit breaker. The real thing, though, is with the circuit breakers, you can remotely turn it on and off. It'll monitor energy usage, but if it trips, you still have to go back to the panel and turn it on. They don't want somebody repeatedly trying to turn on a trip breaker, okay? But on the right side, that's not really smart technology, that's energy management stuff. And so I put this in here really for conversation purposes. We all know the UL rating for an electrical panel says you can only put in the panel box what's rated for it. These energy management companies like Sense, and there's a bunch of other ones, make these devices and they say they're UL approved for using an electrical panel. What do you say? It's not UL rated by the manufacturer. Would you call it out? Maybe, maybe not. Pardon?
Absolutely, I'm going to tell them.
Yeah, yeah. So, but anyway, those are just strictly energy management. Whereas the smart circuit breakers, there's only two companies, a couple companies that are currently making a 240 volt circuit breaker, okay, that you can do in 2 spaces in an electrical box, okay, because it needs 120 volts for the smart aspect. So you may see a 3-pole circuit breaker that's really a 2-pole circuit breaker because it needs that 3rd slot. So there's only, Leviton was the first, and there's a couple of others. Siemens says they're going to have one by the end of the year, okay? But if you see a 3-pole circuit breaker in a house where you know it's single phase, it's a smart breaker, okay? If you see the little lights on it, that's probably energy management built into the smart breaker. So there's just a lot of technology packed into those smart breakers. Whole house surge suppression, you'll see that too. 2020 NEC now makes whole house surge suppression. So anything installed, if you're on 2020, anything that's new has to have whole house surge suppression, type 1 at the panel. Windows and doors. You now can get exterior doors. Masonite Corporation builds one that's got everything built into it. It's got the Ring doorbell, it's got LED lighting, it's got the smart lock, it's got security in it, everything smart. It even has, some of them even have the PV film so that you can change it from clear to colored to opaque glass. Automatic sliding doors, the Star Trek door, it's now a real thing. Windows, integrated sensors. A couple of the manufacturers are even looking into clear solar glass, planning to build solar panels into all the windows. I'm not sure how effective it will be because of the plane of the window and the house, but they're looking at that. Windows, window treatments, we've all seen that. But you could have gate systems that are smart. You could have smart fireplaces. You have the smart speakers, all sorts of sensors. You can have a sensor that not only is a contact sensor, but it's vibration, sound, humidity, UV light, water leakage, smoke and carbon dioxide and monoxide, electricity usage, all built into one sensor that's like a 10-in-1. The security systems, Ring doorbells, camera sensors, audible alarms. You got to be careful with those, especially be careful with now when you see any Ring or Nest devices, anything that looks like a listening device, any camera in the house, people are listening all the time. Be careful what you say. Be careful what conversations you have in front of those. You're advising your clients, you're putting them at a disadvantage if the sellers are listening in. I did an inspection where there was a Ring doorbell and I was standing at the street talking to my clients, and somebody came through the Ring doorbell and said, "Could you speak up? I can't hear everything you're saying." Real story.
I tell the clients, if they're foreigners, they speak another language. I said, ignore me and speak to each other in your language because there are devices that may be able to listen to what you're saying.
If you're talking about how crappy of a job somebody did in finishing their basement, and guess what? The seller thinks they're a great DIYer, finished the basement, you just insulted the client, the seller, so everything in your report is now wrong.
We had a client that was going through while we were doing our inspection. We weren't saying anything. The client, the husband and wife were talking about how tacky everything was in the house. People that were listening blamed us for calling it tacky and everything. And it's like, now we have
I've talked to realtors who have said that they've literally lost deals, wouldn't get an offer accepted because they were commenting about the decorating in the house. They insulted the sellers, and they're like, I don't care if you give us $100,000 more, we're not selling to you. So be careful.
I was looking at a detail in a house, and a termite shield, and a beam was tucked into the wall, and it was done really nicely. I had a student, I said, come over here, look at this detail. And then there was a little thing, a device, I didn't realize it was a speaker, and the guy was listening. He said, you like that? I did that. My hair stood up. I didn't realize he was listening in. And I was pointing out like a detail of the work that he did on the house.
Exactly. There's even a device that you can use to convert an old-fashioned ceiling fan that just uses an RF remote to a smart home. I'm going to skip over a bunch of stuff because I want to get to the report writing here real quick. don't forget about cyber threats. It's a real thing. You know, we all know about the cyber threat with our phones and computers. Well, now your house is connected, and there was a movie where there was a teenage girl sitting at home watching TV, and all of a sudden the lights start going off one after one, and all of a sudden she gets up and goes to run to the front door to set the alarm, and about that time, somebody remotely unlocks the door and an intruder comes in. So, they may not be able to access or utilize smart home devices and advanced features without the correct information. So providing the clients with a list of questions to ask is a good thing, okay? Or recommend they consult a smart home company, even though most of this stuff is not done by a smart home integrator anymore. So here are some questions. What devices are in the home? Ask them to provide a comprehensive list, including the location, because you look at a switch and you may not know it's a smart switch. Do they have hubs or hubs? If so, what type, and will they be leaving it? If the system is based upon an Amazon Alexa or a Google Voice, they're not going to leave that. That's connected to their Amazon account. As soon as they take that device, everything that was smart about the house is gone. And I've walked into a house before and done an inspection on new construction, and they had Amazon Alexa and Google Voices in the house, and it said, say this, say that. If those devices aren't there and the programming isn't there, it's lost. Are there any fees associated with their devices? Do you need a passcode to reprogram anything? Are the devices wired or hardwired? And again, the list of the devices and where they're located. So disclaimers, we all know we have disclaimers. Attorneys recommend them. So we should also have something. So I put this, this is what I use. This might be an old version of what I use, but smart and connected devices are not included as part of the inspection. These systems may include, but not be limited to, access control, audio controls, specialized lighting controls, outlets, security systems, cameras, home automation, and other smart connected devices. These systems may cease to function if some equipment is removed. Without detailed information about the smart and connected devices throughout the home, additional investment may be required to reestablish and make them operational. We recommend further review of these systems by a contractor specializing in smart connected homes and automation. And I think my latest iteration also has a sentence in there about asking the seller for a list, including their location and devices. So I would advise you, if you think there's smart home tech, to have some type of a disclaimer, whether you use mine or your own. And you may just put it in every report. If there isn't any smart home devices there, that's okay. It's not going to increase your liability as long as you don't say there are. But if you don't have the disclaimer and then they have a problem with the devices, you know, you may be getting a call back. Questions?
Disclaimer in the report will be good enough, or should we put it in our pre-inspection?
I think in the report is probably good enough. You could put it in your pre-inspection agreement because that supersedes everything. What do you think on that, Mike?
I like the report. I'm sending a text right now, instead of telling them to add it to our report. You can always put it in the other one, and that's probably useful as well. I think you just gotta make sure you have it somewhere, but I like it in the report. I think I'm probably gonna put it with my electrical system, though I'm debating on that. So,
That's probably where I would put it.
And I've sat here and ordered 3 other smart devices.
From your smart device.
Well, we had a water leak from a special water heater that we had put in. And know about it until it was a real mess. And if I'd had a smart device saying, hey, you know, you had a leak, so I've ordered 5 to put throughout the house.
They make a smart laundry valve. Literally, it will measure water flow, and you plug a sensor into it, and you put it in the drain safety pan. And if there's a speck of water that gets on it, it shuts those valves
Well,
off.
the weird thing is, I have it in one, but I didn't have it in this one, you know, so, yeah.
So anyway, the sky is the limit. This is an abbreviated version of the full class, but anyway, I hope this helped you and enlightened you in some way. Thank you.
Mark,